All right, welcome back, everyone. Yeah, thanks for all being here. So quick recap back from DC. I actually saw quite a few of you there at the rally. Um, for everyone here, of course, we were doing live broadcasts of the different rallies in DC. Now, it was actually interesting. We were at the Jericho March rally, mainly Epoch Times entity. We're broadcasting from there. And then we had some reporters at the other rallies, which we're cutting to. You can watch our full broadcast on. It's about 4.5 hours ish. It was interesting. I think 2 weeks ago, the turnout was in the hundreds of thousands. There's different estimates on how many people showed up to this one. And it was hard to say because there were like 4 to 5 different events. And it was kind of unfortunate actually that it was divided like that, because even though the rally on the main lawn where we were at, or where I was at, was pretty big, it probably would have been significantly larger had it all been in one place. Now that said, of course, General Flynn came and spoke out and actually sat down to speak with the Epoch Times afterwards. We'll be publishing an interview on that through American Crossroads, and I'm working on getting an interview with him too. So keep you all updated on that. Yeah, good to see y'all here. Mad Max, thank you. Yes, Stacy Myers, good to see you. Yeah, I met quite a few of you at the event. It was quite nice getting to meet some of you. Yeah, it was good stuff. Let's see. Shalisa 9797. Will President Trump declare martial law? To be honest, at this point, we're gonna have to see. I'm gonna be going a bit into where things are at tonight. John H, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for being here, everyone. So I'm returning to tradition. I have the kombucha tea again tonight. My homemade kombucha again tonight. And again, coming up very soon, we're going to be releasing a special feature. I'm not giving too many details on it just yet, but I think you're all going to really, really like it. Stay tuned. It should be sometime tomorrow, if all goes according to plan. Something really interesting. I think you're all going to really like it. I'll leave it at that for now. William Tell hippie. Hey, you say that until you try some good homemade kombucha. All right, let's jump into it now. As usual, I'm going to be pasting the links of the articles into the live chat. Now, let's see here. One sec. All right, folks, check out the live chat link I just put up. Now, and those of you coming in afterwards, if you want to find the links, check the live chat. Now, first off, Sidney Powell says Trump could trigger 2018 executive order on foreign election interference. I'll read the article, some of it, and we'll go into it deeper. Lawyer Sidney Powell asserted that due to alleged foreign interference in the November 3rd election, quote, it's more than sufficient to trigger President Donald Trump's executive order on foreign interference issued in 2018. And those of you who watch the show know that I've been talking about this executive order pretty frequently on this channel. And given what's going on now with the Supreme Court, where they threw out the Texas case without even looking at it, frankly, I think that sent a clear message that no matter how strong the case is, no matter how much evidence is brought to the table, no matter how much support it has, the Supreme Court is not going to rule in Trump's favor on it. Very likely not only not rule on it, but even refuse to hear it, which was quite a shock to me, to be honest. I mean, maybe I had too much faith in these institutions still, but it was interesting to see the Supreme Court toss that Texas lawsuit out without even giving it a second look, really. And I found it very surprising, especially for Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. Kavanaugh especially, actually, because my thought was that he would be galvanized by the, getting dragged through the coals like he was with these fake rape accusations and so on, and having his whole family dragged into it. Now, what's the real case behind all this? Who knows? Maybe they feel pressured. Maybe they made a legitimate decision. Maybe they said, oh, well, we don't want to bring the country through more trouble right now. We don't want to cause more issues. we're just going to drop this and go on for 4 more years. And what's 4 years? Maybe this is how they're thinking. Maybe they said, oh, what if we face threats ourselves? We've already seen how we can be threatened. Kavanaugh himself has been threatened. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe it's because they have nice, cushy jobs, and they're not doing anything that would risk those nice, cushy jobs. It's a pretty high honored position to be in the Supreme Court like they are. And maybe that was part of it too. I mean, this is just pure speculation. Who knows what their real, motive was for that? But regardless of what the motive was, I think it did send a clear message that this issue with alleged election fraud cannot be solved through the Supreme Court. And I think, frankly, the Trump administration is now seeing this. They're seeing again, no matter how strong the evidence is, no matter what they bring to the table, no matter how strong the case is, the Supreme Court doesn't seem interested in seeing it. The Supreme Court sent a message to the United States that they are not even interested in looking at the evidence being brought to them. And to say that they haven't seen the evidence, when I guarantee you most of us have seen pretty serious evidence by now, to say that they haven't seen it and decided not to look at it in a court of law, it was very surprising, to be honest. Now let's go a bit deeper into what's happening now with Sidney Powell. Now, in September 2018, Trump signed an executive order, I've mentioned it frequently, that says, quote, not later than 45 days after the conclusion of a United States election, 45 days after the conclusion of a United States election, the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the heads of any appropriate executive departments and agencies, shall conduct an assessment of any information indicating that a foreign government or any person acting as an agent of or on behalf of a foreign government has acted within the intent or purpose of interfering in that election. Now, you all tell me, have we seen evidence, right? Now, again, shall conduct an assessment of any information indicating that a foreign government or any person acting as an agent of or on behalf of a foreign government has acted with the intent or purpose of interfering in that election. Now, I can tell you, there is significant evidence of this. One, Dominion and Smartmatic being the two biggest ones. Because frankly, if you might have seen, for example, the interview we did with the Texas lawmaker, talking about, I have to forget his name right now, Gosnell, Senator Gosnell. Now, you might remember what we spoke about in the interview I did with him, which is he mentioned the reason why other parts, Arizona, the reason why many states, for example, or Texas, threw out the Dominion voting systems was because when they asked them about foreign involvement in this technology, they could not answer the question. They refused to answer it. You have some of these companies like Smartmatic that have avoided CFIUS requests, which would review them for foreign influence. You have, for example, multinational corporations like Google, Twitter, Facebook, very likely acting on behalf of foreign interests to some extent. And G Media, there's been different rumors about this. Maybe, for example, some of these institutions like Facebook, maybe they want to get their own currency passed because they're going to be launching this new digital currency. Maybe they're trying to bow down to China because they want to get their businesses into China. There's been some information on this. Just saying. When it comes to the big media really working hand in hand with big tech and big government, to say that there is no evidence of maybe collusion between them, I think would be far-fetched given the way that the election night turned out. Given the way that they refused to call these key battleground states where Trump had a significant win, whereas they called other states on much less evidence, much less information. And at the same time, the way the votes froze, the way the votes flipped within sometimes 5 minutes, if even that, is very curious. And there does seem to be significant involvement with Dominion especially, but also possibly people on the ground with these organizations. And not to mention, actually, too, the pre-election interference of, for example, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, for example. Now, you might remember there was this finding that Black Lives Matter had ties to this Chinese organization operating, I believe, out of San Francisco, which was a front group historically of the Chinese Communist Party's Red Guard. Now, New York Times, after that information came out, because it did direct to their website, the donations page, after that information came out, New York Times came out with this article. Oh, sorry, everybody. That organization you're pointing to is actually not the one everybody's accusing it of. Absolute garbage and nonsense. They're different branches of the same organization. It's like saying, oh, the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Texas is different from the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Alabama. This movement you saw where it was accepting money from this political campaign, that had nothing to do with it, just hypothetically speaking. Absolute nonsense. To say that a local branch of the same organization does not represent the actions of a local branch in another one, when you're talking specifically about historical ties to the Chinese Communist Party, is absolute nonsense. The way New York Times tried covering up for that story was very, very strange. And frankly, strange enough to lead me to believe that maybe they're trying to hide something and maybe colluding with them to hide something. And the funny thing with this election is we've seen a lot of strange issues like this. Even the way, for example, social media has tried to declare who the winner of this election is. Trying to declare very early on that Biden won the election, and saying that if you question it, they're going to label your articles as fake news, even delete your videos, as YouTube is now threatening to do. Now, again, Trump in 2018 signed an executive order stating that not later than 45 days after an election ends, right? So 45 days after November 3rd, election ends. The Director of National Intelligence is going to consult with the heads of any appropriate executive departments and agencies, which leaves it pretty broad. Right, in consultation with the heads of any appropriate executive departments and agencies. Maybe the Defense Department, right? Who knows? It leaves it very broad that they shall conduct, not that they should conduct, but they shall conduct an assessment of any information indicating that a foreign government or any person acting as an agent or on behalf of a foreign government, in other words, doesn't even have to be direct involvement by China, Russia, or Iran. And Sidney Powell has talked specifically about, we've seen allegations with evidence of China, Russia, Iran, and Pakistan having involvement in this election, not to mention Venezuela. There's significant evidence of foreign countries being involved directly in the election, not to mention any person acting as an agent of or on behalf of a foreign government. Meaning that this report being given to Trump under the requirements of this 2018 executive order he signed declaring a national emergency could be something pretty interesting, right? Now, for those of you who are interested in reading it, I'll paste you the executive order in the chat. You can read it yourselves. Here you go. So in the live chat, I pasted the executive order. Read it yourselves, draw your own conclusions. Now, real quick, let's see here. And I'll be going deeper into this too, so just give me a minute. Maria L. Perez, I appreciate the donation. To the Supreme Court of USA, God is all truth and he vomits the lukewarm. God brought you in your position in right time and specific purpose. I hope you don't miss his grace. For me, I fear God more than men. Yeah, thank you, Maria. Revenge of the Sniffed. It's an epic name. Please comment on the push for MAGA supporters to sit out of the Georgia race. Sounds like the leftist misinformation campaign and tactical suicide. Yeah, it does seem to be that there does seem to be issues of voter suppression taking place. Because really the refusal in itself to look at evidence of voter fraud, and even the push, for example, for people to not participate in the election because people don't believe in the integrity of electoral system right now. When it comes to the Georgia Senate race, what happens if, because of the way the last election just turned out, where people don't trust in the institutions, the evidence being brought to the Supreme Court is not even being looked at, and people are so disenfranchised with the integrity of our election system, to the extent that you and I and everybody here has seen significant evidence that something weird happened, to the extent that many people don't even want to vote. What's going to happen then if people don't go out to vote, even despite all these anomalies and different issues they're doing? For example, doing these large scale push for mail-in ballots, repeating again the trail of incidents we saw with the last election, which led to all these issues we're seeing now. I would call that voter suppression. I'd call it significant voter suppression. And again, maybe within 45 days of the Georgia election, we'll also see an assessment from the Director of National Intelligence on this as well. There's a lot that Trump can actually do under this. There's a lot that Trump can do under this. I'll go into that deeper in a minute. Let me go over a couple more questions here. Mad Max, I appreciate the support. I'm having red wine tonight. Red team is for morning time. Do you think the ball is in Joe's court to step down or wait to be implicated for some kind of fraud or law breaking? Lots of investigations on the go. Frankly, when we're talking about these different investigations, you might have seen some of the stories on looking into Hunter Biden now all the media. Remember all the media during the elections was saying, don't even look at the Hunter Biden laptop allegations. Remember when they said, was it New York Times, said, we spoke, or 50 different intelligence or former intelligence operatives say that this looks like Russian disinformation. Don't even look at this information on Hunter Biden's laptop. It's Russian disinformation. And now they're all reporting on it. Now the election is over as far as they're concerned. Right? All the media that were telling you not to even look at the story, that it was Russian disinformation. Now they seem to be behind the idea that maybe something happened with Hunter Biden. They seem to be behind the idea that Joe Biden doesn't seem interested in this. Why the sudden shift in narrative, right? Now, I can tell you as an investigative journalist, I've been doing this now for 14 years. When I see media behave like this, it usually means one of a couple different things. Either one, it supports their strategic interests. Maybe they want Biden to get pushed out. Maybe they want Biden to, for example, say, oh, you know what? There's too much corruption in my family, and I'm going to concede to retain the integrity of our justice system. And then, the Republicans, some of them are going to be satisfied to say, oh, finally, there's been a prosecution. Finally, someone got arrested, maybe Hunter Biden. Finally, a government official is stepping down because of the corruption in our system. Great, right? Maybe some Republicans will see that and they'll be like, great, finally, right? And maybe Democrats will say, yeah, you know what? We're bipartisan too. We can say that Biden, he's creepy. His family was involved in fraud. Let's get rid of him, have him step down, put this whole incident behind us. And then Kamala Harris becomes president of the United States. Then what? Does she pardon Joe Biden? And then all the crimes of the Biden family are swept under the rug, right? The whole incident goes away. He absolves himself of guilt. Frankly, that seems like a good exchange to me. To, for example, run for the president and be the figurehead, and then right after the election, get taken out so the person they really wanted in, Kamala Harris, becomes president. And remember that before, during the presidential debates, the candidate debates, when Harris was one of the candidates to run as president, she had the backing of the whole Obama machine. A lot of the people who backed Obama were backing Harris. And people I was speaking to said she's going to be the one they choose on the Democrat side to run. And she didn't have enough popular support to really do it, right? And so they backed up off her, put Biden in, and then made her the vice president, essentially, vice president-elect, candidate. And here we are now, right? Now, that is one possibility when you're talking about strategic interest, strategic direction. And whether, and again, this is speculation, right? Maybe this isn't the intention behind it, but frankly, it's going to be it's the trajectory of it. It's the direction we're heading in with it, right? Intentional or not, it is the direction this is heading in. The other possibility, when you see media change their narratives like this, when they go around saying, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, don't look at it, and then they do something that is technically against their special interest. The other thing you often see them do is when information is going to be leaked, When a story is about to break that's going to make them look really bad, what happens? New York Times, Washington Post, one of the big few media. They'll get the preemptive leak from someone within the camp who is going to give them the story, and then they're going to frame the narrative. And that framing of the narrative is going to define all the future news coverage on that topic. They write these deep analysis pieces, they look like them at least, that create this, it reads like a nonfiction book where they reenact the whole scene of how something played out. And through the reenacting of it, they can choose to omit information. They can choose to exaggerate information. They can choose to make things appear in ways that they might not have actually happened. And the result of this is that people in their minds, they feel like they have an idea of how the incident plays out, and they limit their analysis and the ideas of possible wrongdoing within the boundaries of that analysis. For example, when Obama was caught to have been involved in, drug trafficking with, what was it, Hezbollah in Latin America, Hamas in Latin America, I can't remember which. Remember that story? That to me reeked of that type of story where media were covering up for criminal wrongdoing, possibly, of people in office by framing the narrative of how things actually played out. You see them do this all the time. Anytime a big story is going to be released, they'll do that. And this is just part of the way that corrupt government works hand in hand with corrupt media. These are corrupt organizations working together, essentially. And it's what they always do. Leak or come out, that's what they always do. And so when I see, this story about Hunter Biden coming out now and all these organizations that said, former intelligence officials say that this is Russian disinformation. We're not even going to report on this because it's Russian disinformation. And Biden's up on the campaign trail, speaking on the public debates, telling Trump that this is Russian disinformation. Suddenly they all change their narrative, right? To me, that says something is going on, frankly. You don't see them switch their narratives like that for no reason. Yeah. Now, folks, I appreciate the donation. Let me go deeper into this. Now, before I go deeper actually into the questions, let me go over some more of the story. Now, again, we're talking about the Sidney Powell saying that Trump could invoke this 2018 executive order on election fraud. Now, Powell told the Epoch Times that she believes that due to the executive order, it can give Trump, quote, all kinds of power to do everything from seize assets to freeze things, demand the impoundment of machines. Many things he could do with this. And she says, quote, under the emergency powers, and remember, he declared a state of national emergency under that executive order. Under the emergency powers, he could even appoint a special prosecutor to look into this, which is exactly what needs to happen, Powell said. And she continues stating, quote, every voting machine in the country should be impounded right now. There's frankly more than enough criminal probable cause to justify that. For anybody who's willing to address the law and the facts purely on the basis of truth and not politics or corporate greed or global wealth. Now, for the past month, some, including Arizona's Maricopa County GOP chairwoman Linda Brickman, as well as Powell herself, have alleged that Dominion voting systems machines allowed for votes to be switched from Trump to Democratic candidate Joe Biden. Dominion has pushed back, saying that it's not possible to change votes, while asserting it has no ties to foreign governments and doesn't allow its employees to engage in vote tabulation efforts. Evidence suggests otherwise, but that's their claim, right? Now, Powell noted that Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, and he does seem to be pretty in favor of Trump. He again, if he's going to be the one doing this assessment, he has shown signs of being close to Trump. But as we've seen this whole thing play out, sometimes people seem to pretend to have a certain position, and then when it comes to the very moment on which we see whether they're going to stick to it, they don't always stick to it. So we'll have to see with him. But again, when it comes to Ratcliffe, he has only a few days left until he is to prepare his report to the president. This is, again, within 45 days of the election, he is required to put this report together. 45 days, right? This means very soon he is required to put this report together and present it to Trump. Again, according to that 2018 executive order, it's not clear when or if Ratcliffe will issue the report, as no public confirmation has been given so far on this. He's required to do so. Will he do so, and will we hear anything of it? Who knows? Now, little mention has been made of the executive order since it was issued more than 2 years ago. Should Ratcliffe issue his order, because this is according to Powell, it's going to blow the mind of every citizen in the country who's willing to look at the truth and the facts. And she said, quote, because we've never witnessed anything like this in the history of this country. And it's got to be stopped right now, or there will never be a free and fair election. And we see that happening now with Georgia, where a lot of people seem disenfranchised when it comes to whether they're even going to vote. Now, again, with this order, it also stipulates that, quote, within 45 days of receiving the assessment and information, the heads of the Department of Justice and Homeland Security and any other appropriate agencies, leaving it very open, leaving it almost totally open, right? Any other appropriate agencies shall deliver a report evaluating the U.S. general election. Will the Department of Justice issue its own report on this in addition to the one from Ratcliffe? Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, possibly the Department of Defense, all issuing their own reports evaluating the U.S. general election. This executive order signed in 2018 has a lot to it, right? Now, that includes, quote, according to the executive order, that includes, quote, the extent to which any foreign interference that targeted election infrastructure materially affected the security or integrity of that infrastructure, the tabulation of votes, or the timely transmission of election results. And if any foreign interference involved activities targeting the infrastructure of or pertaining to a political organization, campaign, or candidate, the extent to which such activities materially affected the security or integrity of that infrastructure, including by unauthorized access to, disclosure or threatened disclosure of, or alteration or falsification of information or data. Pretty broad, and frankly, we have seen some evidence that would support this. Already public, we have evidence that would support this. Again, there hasn't been a real official investigation into it, not that we've been shown at least, but based on the evidence coming out on the surface, something could be going on with this. Something very serious could be going on with this. Now, let's go a bit deeper into this. Before I go into it, let me get to a couple questions. Let's see here. Rhonda Warwick, what do you think about the 82nd Airborne, all that is going on now? To be honest, I'm not sure. There has been a lot of strange activity with the U.S. military, including, for example, but you might remember that Trump moved a bunch of U.S. warships ahead of the election into the Caribbean, saying that they were supposed to, and to the Pacific, saying they were supposed to be fighting drug traffickers, which was odd because there was no indication that there was an uptick in drug trafficking. It was a very strange move, and then we didn't really hear almost anything from them. And it was also very strange because, in addition to that, there were stories saying that drug traffickers in Latin America were having trouble making their drugs because one of the main facilities they were getting the precursors from was from Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the CCP virus. Why would Trump move the U.S. Navy into the Caribbean and to the Pacific Ocean to fight drug trafficking at that time? It was very strange. And there's been some other reports around this too. Something weird is going on. We can think what we want on it, but there's weird stuff going on. Just leave it at that, I guess. Mustang Medic, and again, we're not being told anything on it, and so we're not really being told anything on it, and so there's just a lot of speculation. You can come to your own conclusions on what's happening. Real quick, everyone. So you might remember YouTube made this announcement that they're going to be pulling down videos, deleting videos YouTube, again, they're going to be deleting videos that talk about allegations of election fraud in ways they don't like. It's not really clear what the technical details of that are. They haven't yet pulled down any videos on Crossroads. One of our other channels, though, actually, we had an interview with Lynn Wood. I'm sorry, we had an interview with Lynn Wood that YouTube deleted. One of the people on the legal team, right? There's Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood. YouTube deleted the video we had interviewing Lynn Wood, which is crazy bizarre. And because of this, again, we've been looking for alternatives on where to host Crossroads if that were to happen. If for example, we got censored here. We've seen evidence of censorship before, but not deleting our videos outright just yet. So I'm happy to announce that we have made our own platform. It's called umaker.com. umaker.com. And we're going to be using that as the main one. I'll be getting we actually have the Crossroads page already up. We have most of our videos there. We're working right now on getting a live function on there as well. It's not up yet, but it mostly has the capabilities we need so far. So don't worry. They censor us. We'll just build our own. Right? We'll build a cooler one. Yeah. And the thing is too, right? Section 230 protections. Under Section 230, you're not supposed to try to censor people. If you censor people, you're a publisher. And so, we're just going to make a nice, good old-fashioned, uncensored, social media platform. And if there's criminal wrongdoing, they can take it to the courts, not to us, because we're a publisher. Sorry, we're a platform, not a publisher. We're not going to get involved with that nonsense. So check it out, umaker.com. umaker.com. Crossroads does have a page there, and we're working right now on getting a live function up. In addition to that, what we're looking to as well right now with Crossroads is a system that will let us go live on multiple platforms simultaneously. And so we're going to have more of a decentralized structure with this show. And so for, as long as, oh yeah, there we go. Crossroads, I got my folks off site. I'll pin the link. We have the link pinned at the top of the chat. Yeah, again, we're working on basically doing a decentralized way of doing the lives, and we're going to keep it on YouTube, and if they censor us, so be it. But we're also going to have it on Rumble, BitChute, probably. We know we have Rumble right now. Of course, uMaker, our own platform, and maybe a few others as well. Very likely we're just going to stream across multiple platforms. It's much harder to censor, maybe greater reach, and it gives you all more options on where you want to watch the show. Yeah, it's funny enough. It actually may have this may actually turn out better for us anyways in the long run. Yeah, it's uMaker, YOUMAKER.com. Check it out. Yeah, they censor us, we'll build our own, whatever. It'll turn out better for us in the long run anyways, like I said. Yeah, so works out, right? That's the power of the free market. Hey, Joe B, thanks for the support. Josh, wouldn't Trump using his executive order be one of the worst outcomes because he would only have 1/3 to 1/4 to 1/3 of the country's support? Do you think there's any other methods that Trump could assert legitimacy of the elections is reversed? He does have some other options, and I'll be going over some of that. There are some very extreme options he could have, and frankly, if he did take such an extreme, path to dealing with this, he would need to present information to the public very quickly to justify such a strong move. Or, again, you're probably right about maybe 1/3 to 1/4 of the country backing something that strong. He would need to very quickly justify it. And so, would he do it? He probably would, to be honest, knowing Trump. He probably would do something like this if it came down to it. But at the same time, maybe he would assess that there's enough of a threat to our country if there is evidence, for example, of China being involved in this election process, which they've stated as such on their own enough to this point. And to the issue as well that most of the governors in these different states that have had these issues do have pretty cozy relations with the Chinese Communist Party. And there's been evidence coming out on this as well. There's plenty of evidence to justify a move like this, and frankly, he could do a lot with it. That said, I'm going to be going into some of the other legal challenges he can make that don't involve that, because there's quite a few different paths of justice he could take. Danny Casino, thanks for donation. Hi, Josh. If he does declare a national emergency or martial law, does that give him the right/authority to maintain control of the executive branch through the investigation? From what I understand, it would. Correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, a wartime president has different laws applied, and especially if the reason for making that declaration was that the electoral process itself was a coup, or a soft coup in this case, then that could be the case, right? He should have that type of power. And as well, if the justice system right now, if the courts aren't able to demonstrate a non-biased enough position when it comes to political interest to actually look at evidence and make decisions based on evidence rather than political leanings, maybe it needs to be handled through military courts. Maybe it does need to be done through court-martials and military tribunals. Frankly, given the way that the legal issues have played out in this country, where justices and judges are basically just political operatives of their respective parties, there's no way you can have fair elections right now. There's no way you could have fair trials right now. Every trial right now is going to be politicized on one side or the other, because all these judges, it seems, are just political actors acting on their political interests, not on the basis of the law or defending the Constitution, as we saw, frankly, with this Texas lawsuit. It would need to be handled through something outside of that. There's no way you could have a fair trial right now, as far as I'm concerned, with the justice system as it is. These are just political actors, right? Our justice system has become a bunch of political actors and nothing more, which is unfortunate, right? Gene Lewis, thank you. Daniel Ashley, thank you. I want a mature app that has notifications like the platform that started with a B does. YouTube will not allow me to type the whole name. Interesting. We're working on a few different options. Again, ummaker.com. We're working on expanding its capabilities, and hopefully it'll be not only a replacement for YouTube, but a better replacement. Samuel, I really appreciate the support. Thank you. CCP Assassin, good seeing you as always. Thank you. Venezuela provides oil to China. Venezuela Dominion voting system elected Maduro. Not. Yeah. Warships in the Caribbean, regime change and restricting Chinese oil. Like I said, there's some weird stuff going on. There is some weird stuff going on right now. Now, let's go deeper into some of the other issues taking place right now before I go into more questions. I'm pasting the link right now into the live chat. Those of you can jump into it later. Trump approves filing retooled Texas-style election challenges, according to Giuliani. Now, remember, Giuliani is on the official Trump legal team. Sidney Powell is on the We the People side. And so what Giuliani is talking about is the official stance of the Trump legal challenges. And Trump has approved filing retooled Texas-style election challenges. Now, let's go a bit into this, and then I'll explain the meaning of it. Now, President Donald Trump's legal team is planning on filing retooled lawsuits, his lawyer said on December 12th. And he said this, Rudy Giuliani saying this on War Room Pandemic, quote, "We move immediately, seamlessly to Plan B, which is to bring lawsuits now in each one of the states. We had them ready. They're just a version of the one that was brought in the Supreme Court. So last night, the president made the decision." Now, Texas filed a lawsuit in the Supreme Court again against Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan, alleging the elections in those states were run contrary to the Constitution. The nation's top court rejected the suit on late December 11th. Now, Trump's team is going to file suits, or has already filed suits, in the 4 states, as well as in Arizona and Nevada. The suits will incorporate allegations in the complaint filed by Texas. And Giuliani said this, quote, "If the state doesn't have standing, surely the president of the United States has standing. And certainly the electors in the state have standing. So they will be bringing those very cases right in those courts starting today. Let's see what excuses they can try to use to avoid having a hearing on that. Now, courts have been using the matter of standing to dodge facing the facts, he said. And he continued, quote, nobody wants to face the reality that this election was stolen, according to Giuliani. Now, this is important because whether or not this succeeds, this buys time for Trump to maybe move on other things. Maybe it has a chance at succeeding. Again, that is bringing faith again to the Supreme Court, which just tossed out a very strong case with Texas without even really looking at it. Again, not even really looking at the allegations. Will these cases be stronger than that one? Who knows? Will these cases be stronger than that one? Again, who knows? That was a case filed by Texas, not by the Trump administration. Maybe they're waiting for a challenge coming directly from Trump and not one of the states. In that regard, maybe it is a bit stronger. At the same time, will the Supreme Court rule in favor of Trump or even be willing to look at it at this point? Who knows? What it does do, though, is it delays things. Now, remember what Sidney Powell mentioned before, that any lawsuit filed before December 14th, right? Any lawsuit filed before December 14th, at least, she said, meaning maybe even later than that, some could be accepted, could have a chance of reversing things. Meaning that if Trump can get in as many lawsuits as they can before at this point, well, tomorrow, right? Because time is ticking right now. Anything filed between now and tomorrow, and again, they started working on this over the weekend, allegedly, giving them a couple days to bring their lawsuits in. Again, based on that, these will, at the very least, give some extra time for the Trump team to work on this. This will give them time to go through the courts and work on this. And again, these are going to be brought all the way through these different courts up to the Supreme Court, very likely again. And this is in addition to the existing lawsuits filed by Sidney Powell and the other lawsuits in the Trump team. They have many lawsuits in many different states. All of this is going to delay the outcome of this election. All of this is going to delay, with legal backing, these challenges, which, again, if they do go to the Supreme Court and they are willing to hear it and they do something on it, could still overturn the election. In other words, this battle is still far from over. And again, this is the normal legal course of action, not even talking about Trump's executive order. This is two different sides we're looking at with it again. Now, he continued, this is outrageous what they're doing. The American people should have the benefit of hearing these facts. The facts have been kept from them. And he also said that, quote, not a single court decision has had a hearing yet. They haven't heard from a single witness. How can that be? Frankly, I think on the show, we've gone over quite a bit of evidence. And you can be the judge of whether you think that evidence has backing or not. But frankly, I think the evidence is there to back them. At the very least, the witnesses themselves, people signing sworn affidavits, saying that they're willing to go to jail if they're lying. Those people themselves count as evidence in this case. And there's well over 1,000 of them. He said they haven't looked at a single tape. They haven't listened to a single recording. There are thousands of them. They haven't even bothered to look at the tape in Atlanta, Georgia, which is dispositive. It shows an ongoing voter theft of 30,000 votes, enough to change the election. Now, again, what he's saying, these different states haven't even tried looking at this case. These different states haven't even made an effort. The courts haven't even let witnesses speak. Nothing has been done on that. We'll have to see, right? Now, again, dozens of election-related lawsuits filed by Trump and others have been rejected in court. Some were appealed. Others are still being decided. I won't go too much deeper into that, but, again, we'll have to see what comes out of this. A few questions here. Let's see. Jimmy Ling, thanks again, and good seeing you here. One of the best options is the public support similar to the one on Saturday, with the masses only support just Trump rather than GOP. That does seem to be the direction of things. Those of you who were at the rally on Saturday, actually, there's the new Great America Party that was announced. It's not officially Trump, but they are supporting Trump. It's under Frank Gaffney, who's with the Committee on the Present Danger of China. He announced the Great America Party, under the assessment that people don't seem to really believe now in the Republican Party either. And, this was something in the works for a long time. Trump really wasn't a Republican. He really wasn't. In fact, remember when he first got in, the Republicans it wasn't even clear whether the Republicans were going to give him the nomination. He kind of got into that system. And remember, the culture of the Republican Party changed hugely under Trump, including, for example, Bush and the Bush family going to the Biden side and basically hanging out with Obama and them and joining their side. It's not technically the Republican Party. Trump has reformed the Republican Party. A lot of the rhinos got pushed out. Republicans in name only got pushed out about halfway through his administration so far, right? Again, does he need a new party? Does he need to stick with the Republican Party now that it's been mostly reformed from the inside? Anyways, who knows? But yeah, this is true though. People are supporting Trump, not the Republican Party, and that's actually an important distinction. And we'll have to see what happens with it again. See some different questions here. Peter Shearer, appreciate the donation. Why is the news suddenly interested in Hunter? Part of the plan. 1, Biden is elected. 2, he steps down due to Hunter. 3, Harris becomes president. 4, Pelosi becomes vice president. 5, Harris pardons Biden's. 6, Biden's deal with China. Yeah, I mentioned my analysis on that earlier in this episode. I won't go over it again just so I don't repeat things for those of you watching, but it is weird. Again, especially given that you had these big media. You had all these media and like New York Times, for example, saying, 50 different former intelligence officials say that the Biden laptop rumors are a Russian disinformation or look like Russian disinformation. Suddenly these different organizations, right? Suddenly all these different organizations that were telling you don't even look at the evidence, don't watch it, don't turn on the news. Everybody talking about this is a conspiracy theory. They're spreading Russian disinformation. They should be censored. Remember, that was the narrative for a long time. Now they're all saying, oh, maybe there's something here. Oh, look at guilty Hunter Biden. Why did they suddenly switch the narrative on this, right? Why did they suddenly switch the narrative on this? Well, very likely it's because it fits their political interest now. It did not fit their political interest before. It fits their political interest now. And what is the trajectory of that political interest? Well, very likely, again, Biden either being incriminated or stepping down because of his son and because of trying to maintain, the integrity of the office. And 2, very likely being pardoned afterwards by Kamala Harris anyways, who will then become president. That does seem to be the trajectory of this. Now, let's go a bit deeper into some of this. Basically, there's allegations now that, of course, I don't think I need to tell you this, but the Supreme Court dismissed the Texas case on a political whim. And there's a few other things going on, too. The Georgia Supreme Court has declined to hear a Trump lawsuit. The Georgia Supreme Court has declined to hear a Trump lawsuit ahead of the Electoral College vote. So there's some, again, lower court stuff going on. Trump says it's not over, though, after the Supreme Court decision. Let me go over the story with you all here. So check out the link I have in the live chat. As Trump says it's not over after Supreme Court decision. President Donald Trump vowed that his campaign will continue to go forward with its legal challenges related to the November 3rd election. And he said this, again, this is his quote here. He said this, quote, "No, it's not over. We keep going and we're going to continue to go forward. We have numerous local cases." And he also said this, quote, "We're going to speed it up as much as we can, but you can only go so fast." And he said they give us very little time, but we caught them, as you know, as fraudulent, dropping ballots, doing so many things, nobody can even believe it. Trump is not giving up the fight, in other words. And again, based on what Giuliani said, they're going to be bringing this, again, filing new cases based on the Texas lawsuit, using that same framework. And at the same time now, Sidney Powell, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, saying that Trump should invoke his 2018 his 2018 executive order, declaring again that maybe there was foreign interference in the election. And again, noting that within 45 days of November 3rd, the Department of National Intelligence and any other relevant branch of the U.S. government, including the Department of Homeland Security and including the Department of Justice, are required now to write reports to Trump talking about the assessment of the election, and when it comes to the DNI, also any evidence of foreign interference in the election. And that gives Trump significant power. That gives Trump a whole lot of options. That is about to happen within a few days, right? Within a few days, we could see that, at least according to the requirements, if the requirements of that 2018 executive order are followed. Again, within 45 days under that executive order, within 45 days of an election, these different branches are required to give Trump a report on the election based on this stuff. And also that executive order gives Trump a lot of power to seize assets, for example, to appoint a special prosecutor, for example, and to do maybe other things as well. We'll have to see. Let me go to a few questions here. Let's see. This is Trevor Cromer. Thanks for the donation. Lighthouse.com. Released soon. It has been in production for a while and should be amazing. It is Facebook, YouTube, and Etsy in one. YouTube was giving me problems with sending this message. Oh, good to know. Yeah, thank you. And again, going forward, I mentioned that YouTube is now saying they're going to delete videos if they say things about the election they don't like. Specifically, if you talk about election fraud in connection with other allegations, which I probably can't state, or they'll probably ban this, block my videos. Based on that, Epoch Times, again, we've launched our own platform. It's called YouMaker, yououmaker.com. Crossroads now has a page on it. We're working on getting live video function. We also now have a Rumble page. We're working on a few other ones as well. And going forward, also, we're going to be looking into options that let us broadcast simultaneously these live Q&As on multiple different platforms. And so we're going to have one system that is absolutely, they cannot censor it no matter what. And keep in mind, too, these are also on the Epoch Times website. We're building a system, again, they can't censor us no matter what. It's already done, already launched. Doesn't yet have all the functions that we need, like, for example, live video, but we're working on it. But going forward, again, we're going to be looking into options that let us broadcast to multiple platforms simultaneously, including YouTube. If they do end up blocking us here, though, we will be looking into other options. Again, but don't worry about it. We're not going to censor ourselves. Yeah, so no worries. We'll just build our own. We'll build a cooler system. All right, let's see here. From Catterly. I heard big tech could create a blackout of technology sites like FBI or something like Facebook, Twitter, Google to force news through MSM to keep the narrative as big news drops to support Trump and show fraud. How will you guys get your message out? We'll build our own platforms, first off. But second off, we have enough reach right now where I think people are already turning away from the mainstream media. But at the same time, this is one of the issues I think Trump has seen. And in addition to everything he's seeing, in addition to the allegations of election fraud and the anomalies we're seeing and all these different problems we're seeing, in addition to different states behaving like they are, in addition to the media censoring people, censoring, in addition to big tech working on behalf of them, I think Trump is also seeing that his ability to get the message out, to even make public statements that reach people like you and I, they're actually becoming very limited. Because if all the media, for the most part, are not even reporting on what he's saying, if the social media, and remember, YouTube just blocked two of Trump's advertisements, and Facebook has already blocked political advertisements, meaning that Trump can't get his message out through anything other than Twitter right now, and even Twitter is censoring his posts. What are his outlets he can get information out on? Well, Epoch Times, Newsmax, OANN, not many others. I think, frankly, they don't have the capability to censor him entirely because these new platforms exist. But I think the more significant part of this is that Trump is seeing now that all these institutions appear to be colluding with each other. All these institutions appear to be colluding with each other, not just on, the fraud itself, possibly, but even on the censorship of, public voice and public discussion. And not only the censorship of public voice and public discussion, but the statement of something that is absolutely not true, that Biden won the election when they claimed he did, which he didn't. That, again, they called himself the president-elect when he was not. The fact that media were pushing that narrative when it wasn't the case was really bizarre. And frankly, has every single part of what would be defined as a soft coup. Now, evidence of all these folks working together, and Trump has all these powers that he may be able to invoke if he so chooses to, frankly, and then Supreme Court behaving the way it is right now, frankly, I think his options are becoming very limited. But even as the options are becoming very limited, I think, he has very strong options on the table still that he could use. Options, frankly, that are more powerful than any of these anyways, especially under that executive order, and especially if he decides to call in, for example, like the Insurrection Act, if he wanted to. The more he sees collusion among these institutions, which is, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. The more he sees collusion in this country, maybe even outside this country, not just between media, government, big tech, foreign actors, local politicians, maybe even the courts, it does seem. The institutions themselves are riddled through with these things. What options are left? And would Trump simply hand over the country to something that is so openly corrupt? Frankly, I think given the picture we're looking at, it wouldn't surprise me if he took very strong actions with this. But again, the question, how will you guys get your message out? Epoch Times has a very strong print paper. We have a very strong website. We're building our own platforms for other stuff. There's no problem with us getting our message out at this point. Although they very likely, if they didn't censor us in the way they have, we would have grown a lot faster. But regardless, it's gone very well for us. If anything, it just slowed us down a bit, right? Let's see here. Jimmy Ling, always good seeing you here, and really appreciate the support. At least this Texas lawsuit has shown who was on Trump's side. That's true. And actually, that ties into what I just mentioned as well. That really ties into what I just mentioned. Trump is now seeing who is on his side and who is on not. And he's seeing beyond it now because they think he's done with. It's on who is on the American people's side and who is not. Who was on the side of the American people and who is on the side of this corrupt global infrastructure that we're now seeing playing out. This special interest corruption we're seeing across all these different institutions, public and private. Marty Flynn, thanks for the support. Josh, with all due respect, the liberals will do anything at all levels to stop Trump from being president. I mentioned the other night, this is a global conspiracy, and Sidney Powell is exposing it. No judge wants to take up this case of explosive fraud. Actually, it's possible too. Maybe the judges don't want to take up a case this serious because of the implications of that. Maybe they're worried about facing what that would entail facing, and believing that maybe Trump isn't strong enough to back them up on that if it came down to it. This is a global conspiracy, frankly. The public evidence of it, the evidence of it and evidence of collusion of it is strong enough where we can state that without even saying it's an allegation. There's a global conspiracy going on. And at the very least, again, we can see government, big tech, big media, foreign countries like China, Venezuela, and state, individual threat actors, I guess we could call them at this point, working hand in hand with each other. And without a doubt, that is the case. Jimmy Ling, I appreciate the support again. Wow. This is why to Trump, Georgia runoff is not important to him, but the GOP. The GOP will need Trump VP as tiebreaker if Trump does not hold the Senate majority. That's true. The Georgia election is about maintaining the control of the Senate, maintaining Republican control of the Senate, and Trump is at risk of losing that right now. The Republicans are at risk of losing that right now. Mad Max, thanks for the support again. Appreciate it. The Electoral College is supposed to forward the vote this week. Should be wild. What does your gut tell us, Joshua? A couple different possibilities. One is the Supreme Court is just not going to do anything for us. It's over with. Supreme Court. The legal systems are corrupt to the extent that they won't even let cases be brought to them, they're willing to listen. They're not even hearing witnesses. They're not even looking at evidence. They're not even listening to the tapes. None of the evidence is able to be presented, and the American people are being denied the ability to see the evidence. That's on one side of it. Maybe that is the case. The justice systems in this country are failed, frankly, if that is the case, because it means they're politicized. It means that the Lady Justice has taken off her blindfold and she's looking at things based on a political lens. That she's not looking at things based on evidence brought to her, but she's looking at things based on political interests, corporate interests, so on, right? Special interest over rule of law. That is the end of justice in America, if that is the case. Hopefully they'll look at this evidence. Hopefully they'll at least look at the evidence, and the American people will be able to see for themselves whether that evidence is credible or not based on that. There are cases being brought in. I've mentioned previously, I have some good sources who suggested, based on their analysis, this is analysis, not official fact, but analysis. Their analysis that maybe the Supreme Court was going to throw out all the inconsequential cases and they just wanted to focus on the consequential ones. Maybe they're holding their ammo, so to speak, holding their gunpowder, so to speak, for the case that will matter the most. And maybe, frankly, I thought the Texas case was strong enough to justify that, but apparently it wasn't. They wouldn't hear it. Maybe they were waiting for one that is from the Trump team itself, not through a state. Again, that was a state lawsuit, not an official Trump lawsuit. Maybe that's the case. We'll have to see. Regardless, as I mentioned, though, these different lawsuits are going to delay the outcome of the election. And as long as there are lawsuits in play, the election is still contested. The election is contested as long as they have lawsuits in play. Lawsuits filed specifically at least before December 14th. Meaning that no matter how the Electoral College votes tomorrow, this is not over with. No matter what happens tomorrow, this is not over with. Based on the lawsuits, based on the 25th Amendment, based on some other ways this could turn out. Da Wall, thank you for the support. Yeah, we can see that all these tech companies are colluding with each other to censor people. Now, too bad he didn't listen when people were screaming at him for the last 4 years. Yeah, well, my understanding of Trump is that I don't think he went in believing the system was as corrupt as it is, even when it came to dealing with China. You might remember at the beginning of this virus outbreak, I did some shows, for example, with Larry Elder. I went on his radio show and he asked me to give Trump a rating in terms of his dealing with the virus. I said, well, Trump locked down the borders when he did. He took stronger action than probably any other country in the world. And he also did so being called a racist and all these different names for doing so, even though now this was as it was first playing out, but even though now we see that was the right decision. In fact, Trump mentioned, that while he was shutting down travel with China, Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats were like partying in Chinatown and saying, look at us standing up against racism, and of course they flip the narrative around as they see fit for their own political interests. But, Larry Elder asked me to give a rating to Trump. I said B+, because he did a lot. But what he didn't do at that time, and he changed later, was he didn't recognize the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. He was still willing to listen to them at that point. And hear me out, because he's changed on this, right? He was willing to listen to them at the beginning of the pandemic. Remember, right before the pandemic hit, Trump was on the cusp of signing a trade deal with China. The actions of the Chinese Communist Party after the virus outbreak, withholding protective gear, withholding face masks, threatening U.S. leaders, threatening Barr, threatening other advisors, threatening Trump, going after him, threatening foreign leaders like the Australian Prime Minister, different countries. The actions of the Chinese Communist Party demonstrated the nature of the CCP, and frankly, I think it was through that Trump saw the nature of the Chinese Communist Party for sure. He knew beforehand they were taking advantage of us, but I think he just thought they're making a deal, right? He's a business guy. They're making a deal. Of course, they're going to go for the best deal we can get, and the people we had making our deals on our side were making bad deals, and we were getting screwed over by it, essentially, right? That was Trump's position. He now understands that maybe those deals were made not just through bad deals and bad planning, but maybe through corruption. And he's seeing as well now that the Chinese Communist Party is hostile towards the United States and many other countries, and willing to be very aggressive in that hostility. His position as this virus outbreak has played out over the last year totally shifted on China. And when it comes to big tech and politics and stuff, I think also over time, and I think he's seen it pretty early on with the political side, but more so with big tech and big business. He's seen over these years the extent to which they are willing to go when it comes to lying, when it comes to making up false allegations, when it comes to cooking up these scandals that end up going out with a puff of smoke, but drag the whole country through months or even years, like the Trump-Russia allegations, of groundless lies that cause division, that cause hostilities, that are damaging to the fabric of our nation, that they are willing to do that to the American people. They are willing to lie to the American people for their own political interests. Trump has now seen this. Now, I don't think he believed that they would do what they're doing now, where they're censoring information, censoring people from even having a discussion on something so serious and so consequential, to the point where they are willing to censor the president of the United States. I don't think he anticipated that. And if had he done something earlier, it would have been great, but he did not, unfortunately. He did pass these executive orders. He didn't have the backing of the legislatures on that, and so not much was able to be done. See here, Jimmy Ling, appreciate the support. Again, geez. Lieutenant General Tom McInerney and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has called for martial law, show that Trump may have very strong support from the military and that we the people. That is the other wild card if Trump declares martial law. Frankly, given the evidence, maybe if he's presented within 45 days of November 3rd, the Director of National Intelligence, because of that 2018 executive order Trump signed, they're going to be giving Trump a report that's going to outline whether there was any instance of foreign influence in this election, not just directly, but even indirectly through people who were carrying out actions. At the very least, we can say Dominion has people who are indirectly tied to foreign governments, based on their structure, based on ties to China, based on this $400 million purchase, based on several other factors, and some Smartmatic, again, ties to Venezuela. That alone would be enough, very likely, for him to enact some of the powers within that. Based on his assessment of that report that's going to be presented to him very soon, would he take that and declare martial law? I would not put it beyond him at this point. Based on the evidence I've personally seen and a lot of evidence I've presented on this channel, there's more than enough evidence to support a move like that. And I would not only not put it beyond him, but part of me kind of expects him to do it, just being honest. We'll have to see how it plays out. Stefano G, thank you for the support. If I know Trump's character, I cannot see him allowing this to happen. Fully agree. Trump will use whatever power available to him to make sure the results of this election are honest. It's now or never. Trump knows USA is in his hands. This is true. Now imagine you're in Trump's shoes, right? I can tell you, again, I work for, the Crossroads is a show of the Epoch Times. We've been hit by multiple fake news reports. You can see these stories from the outside. You can know that, they did this hit piece on this guy and it was unfair, it was dishonest. Until it happens to you, and you know your own story, and you know your own background, and you know the facts, and then you see how media twist all that around and how they lie about it and how they even fabricate information. Until you see how they lie to people, right? Until you see it happen to you, it doesn't have as much power. When you have that clarity and you see how they are willing to lie for their own political or business interests. Trump has seen this now. He's seen it with just about every institution in this country, public or private. He's seen it in government. He's seen it in the courts. He's seen it with these different nonprofit organizations. He's seen it with business. He's seen it with tech. He's seen it with the media. Would he hand this country over to those people? Because those are the people These same ones doing these things, those are the same people who've been telling those lies. These same people who've been doing that are the ones who are doing this right now. Would Trump, having that wide view, would he hand over the United States of America to these people based on what they did? Right? I look at his character over the past year, and you can tell me your assessment on that. Seeing Trump and knowing how he works, I cannot see him doing that. I cannot see him handing over this country to those people when he sees things from that perspective. Yeah. Jimmy Ling, again, always appreciate the support, really, genuinely. He says, January 6, 2021 is the day when the House count the vote with VP Mike Pence. However, the most important date is January 20th, 2021, when the president is sworn in. So it is not too late until then. That's right. As long as Trump does not concede until January 20th, this whole thing is still up in the air. Nothing is finalized. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter who wins the vote tomorrow with the Electoral College, none of it matters. It means very little going forward until January 20th, when that deadline is met. Now, folks, I've been going on a bit late tonight, so I'll end here. But real quick, David Sue, really appreciate the support. Shannon Haney, really appreciate it also. Wisconsin Democrat Defense saying, if you were worried about Dominion machines, why didn't you do something before? I arrest the robber before the theft. Yeah, it's like, what, pre-crime? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're not in that state of dystopia yet, right? Where we can arrest people before a crime is committed. Although, frankly, there was enough evidence of some of issues with these systems, but again, it's a state decision to implement these machines. Trump would have had to have overstepped federal government rights in order to do that. And I don't think he was willing to do that before this. Craig F., appreciate the support. I keep being blocked. Anyway, thanks. Webster definition of common reasonable sense is Joshua with real facts. Yeah, thank you. And also, folks, I got to meet a lot of you on Saturday. It was a great experience. I don't need to say, but you're great folks. It was wonderful. It was really good meeting a lot of you in person. Again, I was in DC at the Stop the Steal rally, and I met quite a lot of fans here or there, and it was really good meeting all of you. Let's see. Grunt 49, thank you. How is Gropey Joe doing with the pedophilia treatment? We'll have to see with that one, right? Colin Mackin, you follow QAnon? Not really, to be honest. People send me stuff from it every now and then. I don't know. We'll have to see. For me, I tend to regard things as just. The way my mind works, I don't define things as true or false until I can prove true or false. If something's an anonymous source, I regard it as an anonymous source. If someone gives me information, even if I think the source of it is weird, I'll still consider it as a possibility. I don't just write things off. At the same time, I don't immediately categorize things as true either. I can have this state of things where it's just a possibility. A lot of claims that I get, and including posts people send to me like that, I just put it in the realm of possibility. I don't define as true or false. I do look into the allegations, but I take the allegations also one by one. I don't look at it as a complete whole where I determine the whole thing is true or false. I say, is this allegation true? Can I verify it? Can I prove it? Is it reasonable at the same time? And so that's my stance with a lot of that stuff. Jimmy Ling, appreciate the donation again. Geez. Di Dong Sheng video was unexpected bombshell. Yeah, actually, that was huge. Actually, Epoch Times and NTD, we broke the story on that. Di Dong Sheng was this Chinese professor who did this video talking about how the CCP was able to control the United States through Wall Street, and was talking about how they control American politics through Wall Street. And they were saying that they could not control Trump as opposed to other politicians in the United States. It was a bombshell video, which has now started a whole new category of analysis on what's happened with the election. That different governors and different politicians and different officials in the United States, the ones making these challenges the ones involved in states that have had these irregularities. I mean, a lot of them have very close ties to China. And it's raising the question of, was China involved with these things. That video was significant, and actually it was significant as well, given that, actually, thanks for mentioning that. It was significant as well, given the 2018 executive order Trump signed, specifically looking into instances of foreign involvement in the elections. And if it's not just direct foreign involvement, but through individuals, and frankly, the governors and politicians in these different states have close ties to China, and they're the ones blocking the results, or have been directly involved in subverting the normal constitutional process of changing vote laws. Would that be enough evidence under which Trump could enact some of the powers of that executive order? I think it would be, actually. All right, folks, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to keep going on. Real quick, John Burt, really appreciate the support. Buy Australian wine. Thank you. And Archimedes, I'll make your question the last, and then I'll end it here. Josh, have you heard that air traffic and staff have increased at Gitmo? Can you confirm? Have heard this from an ex-military. I have seen evidence confirming that there is at least some air traffic to Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, meaning this military prison. They also publicly announced that they were doing construction there, which is weird because you'd think that fewer terrorists are being captured. You'd think they would need less space, not more space. At the very least, we can say there has been stuff going on there. The context or reason of it is purely up for your own speculation or analysis. We don't know. But there is stuff happening there. Without a doubt, we can say that. Charles Ford, thank you. Virtue Lee, thank you. And Maximoon, again, appreciate the support. Thank you. I've gone quite long today, much longer than usual. So I'm going to end it here. I'm going to be talking all night. Folks, as always, I really appreciate the support. And again, I'm going to be doing these live broadcasts 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday through Friday, just not on Saturdays because I wanted at least one day off a week. Again, tomorrow I have something very big releasing, very big video releasing tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Oh wow, geez, James Ramirez, really appreciate it. Thank you. Keep your eyes out tomorrow. Big video releasing. I won't give more details on it just yet, but I think you'll all very, very much like it, to say the least. I'll leave it at that. I'll tease you all a bit with it. All right, folks, again, always appreciate it, and see you again tomorrow night. As always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.